So Ryan Magarian, we're at Oven and Shaker, and you do liquor relations, aviation gin, house spirits, long CV, and then of course bartending as well.
You use the word CV. I haven't heard that in years. That's cool. Yeah, I do a lot of fun stuff. I'm really fortunate.
So I did some research, and I believe you are one of the first bars in America to put not only the ingredients that you have in your cocktails, but the actual measurements and directions pretty much on how to create them.
Yeah.
Give me some insight into like how did that come about? What was the thought behind that?
Well, I've always really enjoyed the menu engineering aspect of what I do. I love messing around with formats and just seeing how they impact people. And several years ago, I actually had the idea that I would love to put actually all of the recipes, proportion included, on a menu someday. And it was something that I became so passionate about that I thought, maybe I'll save that for myself. I give away most of my intellectual property consulting and doing other projects, and I'm happy to do it. I love sharing just about everything I have. But that one I really felt excited about, wanted to be the first to kind of bring that to the marketplace. And like you said, I think it's the first, may or may not be, but it's the first one I've seen. And a lot of people who know me, they know I have a heart for the consumer. And I think, with regards to the growing cocktail renaissance, I think sometimes we look a little too inwardly, and we get in a bubble with our peers talking about enjoying cocktails. But if we really want this to stick, if we want to see properly stirred Negronis and Manhattans and well-proportioned drinks in airport bars and all over the place, we've got to bring in the general public. So this was kind of my way of doing it, trying to engage them on a slightly more intellectual level, at the same time creating signature cocktails that weren't intimidating. That one of our guardrails here at Oven and Shaker is that you can, every signature drink we put on a menu has to be easily made, has to be easily recreatable in the comfort of one's own home.
That's a really great goal. Now, what's the reaction been on part of the consumers and who've come to this menu and are seeing, actual ingredients, actual instructions, recipes?
You know what? Interestingly enough, it's not quite as impactful as I thought, but the people who do notice it, they kind of double take. A lot of times, maybe it's the menu font. They see the stuff, they order the drink, and then they kind of halfway through the meal, they go, "Hey, honey, look, there's recipes here." And then I like to kind of jump in and be like, yeah, we love to share our recipes. We encourage you to go home and give it a try, and if you make it better than us, you can come back and taunt us and hopefully spend a little more money. And if you have trouble making it, you can keep coming back and watching us, and either way, I think everybody wins. And there's been a great response. People like yourself have noticed it kind of for the kind of idea that it is, and I'm just stoked about it. For me, there's so much innovation happening just with regards to cocktail recipes. One of my passions is looking kind of to the greater space of cocktails, menus, menu formats, training, service engagement, thinking what are other places we can elevate the cocktail experience besides just trying to come up with a crazy new recipe.
So, do you notice any impact in terms of ordering? Are people, more likely to order something or less likely to order something because of the
great question? I didn't mean to step on your words right there because it really popped in my mind right away. I think it's giving the guest a lot of confidence. I think when you have the audacity or the whatever to put all of to run naked through the streets, so to speak, and just put all your cards on the table. I think it has improved our guests' confidence in us to create and recreate our cocktails, and our signature cocktail sales are through the roof. I mean, I thought they'd be good, but we also have an outstanding beer and wine program. But we can barely keep up with the signature drinks coming out of the wells. So I'm absolutely convinced that kind of disclosure has had a fairly profound effect on our success.
Now, do you think? I mean, when you're talking to, obviously, Oven and Shaker is a kind of union between back of the house and the front of the house.
Very much so.
What does the back of the house think of putting the recipes out there? I mean,
you know what? My partner Kathy loved it. My partner Kurt, who's our restaurateur partner, loved it. I think, like I said, Kathy and I have been around quite some time as well, Kurt, and we've seen it seems like everything's been done. So we wanted to introduce touches in kind of the intellectual space that you hadn't seen that weren't super obvious, but were kind of true leaps, so to speak. And the concept itself, a 4-time James Beard Award nominee partnering and having the confidence to partner with a bartender. I mean, just not seeing that. You're seeing chefs bring a bartender in to do their cocktail program, but you're not seeing that authentic partnership, that trust. And I mean, that to me was one of the most unique things we're bringing to the space. And from there, I think the cocktails, with the recipes, and I also think just having a loose concept. I mean, it's not so much about let's pair individual drinks with individual pizzas. It's like, you know what, sometimes you just want to have a big, beautiful saloon that serves dope pizza and is very passionate about making the best classic cocktails that we can. It's really, frankly, I don't want people to overthink it. Mm-hmm. I just want them to come in and have the time of their lives. When I first was concepting this with Kathy and Kurt and telling some of my friends, like, what do you think of this pizza cocktail thing? People will go, I don't know if pizza and cocktail works. And I go, wait a minute, you're thinking about it too much. I go, what if I told you Kathy Wims is going to come over to my house? We're building a brick oven in my backyard. She's going to make pizza, and I'm gonna get all my booze and I'm going to squeeze all the juice. I'm going to bring in all my talented bar buddies, and we're going to make cocktails all day. And then we're going to play, awesome rock and roll from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. I go, is that a party you would want to go to? And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, all right, there you go, oven and shaker.
So when it comes down to other people's cocktails, so, something from, Dale DeGroff or Jimmy M or Tony Abaganem or, do you put the recipe, if that goes on the menu, do you put their ingredients out there on the list too, or only your own in classics?
Rarely when I use somebody else's recipe like Tony or Dale or Jim or anybody in Portland, I'll use their specs. I want to honor what they've done. So I'll pick a drink where I think the specs done by the author work within kind of the balance framework that we use. So I'm never going to grab a drink from somebody and tweak it to my taste. I'll just pick drinks by craft bartenders who I think have a similar palate perspective. As you know, I really try to go down the fairway and create universally balanced beverages. I always say I want my drinks to apply to a 21-year-old lemon drop drinker as much as I want them to apply to a 55-year-old whiskey book writer. There are a few guys out there who have that same mentality. Dale, Tony being two of them, and Jim, and I would also say Audrey and Julie and a few others. I think make that universally balanced beverage.
So, have you gotten any feedback from other bars or bartenders about running quote unquote naked through the streets with your menu?
Yeah, it's been I've never heard a negative comment. I've actually heard a lot of really, really good comments. I think there was a lot of expectation for what we would be doing here at Oven and Shaker with regards to our cocktail culture. And, my style, again, it's fairly simplistic. I'm a purist. I like to play Mr. Potato Head with classic cocktails, and that's about it. My passion, my joy really comes from the kind of fine-tuning and the execution. And, maybe even some people are underwhelmed by our lack of creativity with regards to recipes, but I think that menu across the board has made a lot of bartenders think, and yes, we've gotten really good feedback.
Is there ever, there's kind of this mushy world of intellectual property when it comes to cocktails. There's at least 2 cocktails in your menu right now which use things like vodka in a different way than most people are using it. Use volatile items like, pine liqueur and, grappa. Is there any concern about, kind of putting that out there, that somebody's going to, come in, take your menu and go, okay, I'm going to do this,
3 words, man. I hope so. Absolutely. That to me is what you want as a chef, as an artisan, is you want people to recreate your work. I think that, whoever created Manhattan or whoever created the Negroni, I think they would be stoked that people are still ordering those today. I've always believed that as someone who tries to manage, a brand as well as, whatever talent that I have, I want my recipes out there. I want people to take these listen. I hope so. I hope people, and I have some peers who are very much wanting to protect their intellectual property, and I respect their argument, and I think, best to them in their fight. But for me, I'll give you any recipe you want anytime. Recipes are not part of what I consider my intellectual property. That is the public domain. For me, it's my training style and how I go about culturizing the way. That's how I make my money and my living, put food on the table and pay my mortgage. Those are the things that I'm more protective of. But just the basics, like recipes, have at it.
So you think cocktails can be considered having kind of Creative Commons license used with attribution, basically?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm always going to take a look at what I see in the kitchen. You know, I was mentored by Chef Kathy Casey in Seattle, who I continue to praise for her talent and creativity and for all the good she's done in my career. And you know, I've been watching, and she's just giving her stuff away all the time. Her recipes, she's very generous with that. And I look around, and you know, you go to LA and you see that crispy rice with tuna and the serrano chili on it in every sushi place, and that's just, you know, these guys are writing food. They're writing books all the time. They're giving away their recipes. So I don't see why cocktails wouldn't be the same thing. None of those chefs, you're not going to Nobu to get his recipes. You're going to have an experience. And I think that putting the cocktail recipes on the menu diffuse this idea of you going specifically for signature drinks. It's kind of like diffusing that part of the experience. We put so much time and effort in the environment of this bar and restaurant that I want you to come in for the experience flat out. And I want the food, and I want the cocktails and the beer and the wine. I want them to be an accent. I want to be an environment-driven experience rather than a product-driven experience, but with the best possible product that Kathy Williams and Ryan Magarian can possibly render.
Now, have you had customers come back and say, I took your cocktail menu home, I made the cocktail at home, and here's how it turned out? Yeah,
I haven't had the turnout thing, but I'm waiting for that to happen, but I'm seeing people like fold it up, put it in their purse, put it in their back pocket, and I'm seeing them like ask if they can take it. I'm like, yes. I'm actually thinking about putting a stamp on it that take this home, you know, I want to create discourse. I really believe over time it's going to create a very unique connection with our friends and our family here at Ornes.
Now, do you think a natural extension would be to put all these cocktails that you do in a book? I mean,
absolutely. You know, I have a compendium. Obviously, I actually keep a compendium of over 500 drinks behind the bar for my bartenders to utilize, and for my bartenders to consistently add their own recipes to when we have development sessions. And yeah, one day, you know, I've been shopping, you know, a book idea for quite a while, and I think right now it's challenging. The market is really kind of overblown with cocktail books, so you know, I think when I have a story and a perspective that's unique, that'll be the time to do it. But yes, I'm all about giving my recipes away.
But a book would charge.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, again, you know, if you look at you know, look at it. Maybe it's embarrassing, maybe it's not. You go into my kitchen and look at the books. I mean, I've got Michelle Bernstein, I've got Giada De Laurentiis. I mean, I buy personal brands like everybody else does. I mean, I don't think you buy just product. I mean, I think that you know, you buy a brand. I mean, look at Rachel Ray. I mean, she's no superstar when it comes to cooking by most people's estimation. I've never had her food, so I won't comment. But I mean, for the average American, she resonates, man, and it's her personal brand that carries her food and whatnot with her. So to me, you know, if I sell a book, I would hope I worked hard enough on my own kind of who I am and my lifestyle and how it resonates with others, that that's as much the reason you buy the book as just for the recipes. And very much the same for the restaurant. I hope that you come in for just the idea of what we can do than specifically the cocktails.
Now back to the Naked Cocktail menu. Have you sat down with your business partners to do an ROI to say, hey, we're making this much more or this much less? I mean, pure dollars and cents beyond, you know, creating an environment and experiences and so forth. Have you been able to quantify a positive or negative impact? Well,
as with any signature cocktail menu that I do, I'm very mindful of the cost. Probably some people would say too much, but you know, that's how we make money, I understand. But I would tell you, it never undermines my credibility with regards to the best drink possible. I mean, so you know, to me, I always say a great menu should be like a great rock album, or a rock album that resonates both from a revenue perspective and from a cultural perspective. So let me select a rock album like U2, October Baby. You know, when I think of that album, I think it was a revelation for its time period. It was a perfect balance of songs that sold, that resonated, that got them on tour, and songs that nobody really listened to unless they had a personal connection to the song. So that's exactly what I try to do with the cocktail menu, is try to almost do a 50-50 of drinks that I know are going to be fun and approachable, and also will drive revenue, which allows us to stick around, which allows me to employ all these awesome people. I think sometimes people forget that it's more than just opening a bar to make good cocktails. It's like, I got 30 people employed here. I'm stoked. I probably get more joy from that than anything else that I'm doing. And then the other half, because we have been so mindful of the cost, and within those well-costed drinks, we find most of my approachable drinks. The other half can be a little more obscure and have higher costs because we're able to kind of balance just through my estimation of what will sell and keeping those costs low versus what is not going to sell as much, knowing I can have those be a little bit higher and use some more obnoxious ingredients, so to speak. That's just kind of in a nutshell how I work on cost. There's some knowledge for you.
So, in terms now, you're putting out exactly the ingredients in your cocktail. So instead of maybe saying rye whiskey, you're putting the brand down, right? What brand reps that have come into the store or come into the shop are they pushing to get included in that menu?
You know what? I'm actually surprised. We have not had nearly as much as that as I expected, which I'm stoked about because. I'm just stoked about it. But as you know, as an enthusiast and somebody who has a heart for what we do, it's like, you change the brand of vermouth in a Manhattan, you change the brand of gin in a martini, all these things are going to affect your final outcome. And I have a very specific perspective of how I want my classics to taste. And I know that if people are going to recreate my cocktails, I want them to be able to do it in their whole form. So to just say whiskey when I know that Rittenhouse and Sweet Vermouth by Martini and Rossi are the two that I use to make the Manhattan that I make with 3 dashes of Angostura bitters, I'm going to tell them exactly that, because if they go home and use whatever they have, say Canadian Club, 2 ounces of Canadian Club against an ounce of Martini and Rossi is not going to work. But I know that something bold and austere like a Rittenhouse. So all these things are infinitely important to kind of creating not only the experience here, but allowing the guest to recreate that at home.
Not getting too deep into your intellectual property, because I know you're already giving them enough away by your menu, but talk about a little bit about your process of getting down to knowing. Let's take one of your signature drinks, for example. What's one of the classic signatures on your menu right now?
Classic cocktails: gin martini, old-fashioned brown derby, applejack rabbits.
So a good example would be like for the gin martini. What's the process you go to say, this is my gin martini, this is the spirit, this is the ratio, so on and so forth?
It is laborious and not healthy, first off. So I don't recommend it for everybody, but for me it just starts with mad kind of control testing, where I'll pick one gin and try all the different dry vermouths that I prefer until I find the right balance of vermouth, the right vermouth that plays with the right gin, with that gin, and I'll run through all the different gins, and then I'll run through all the different vermouths, and it's to get to the gin martini that I have today on our menu. That's probably taken me 5 or 6 years, in all honesty, and over the years I've always, I think, made a pretty decent martini, but the only way you can truly make, I think, really beautiful balanced cocktails, it takes time. You can't do it in 2 or 3 years. It takes a decade, I think, for most people to kind of ingest the volume of flavors, the volume of options, and the volume of connections that can be made to finally do that. So, had I done this concept 5 years ago, I don't believe our drink would have been half as good.
Now, once you spec a drink, like your gin martini, do you ever revisit it? Is it something that you ever go back to, or once it's spec'd, it's spec'd?
You know what? I revisit it all the time when I taste it. And I'm always tasting on drinks. I'm always tasting my drinks. It's one of the beauties of finally having a bar, a dream bar, is that I can constantly taste and see if my perspective's changing, if my palate's changing, if I was having an off day when I spec'd it. But so I'm just tasting all the time. And I'm in the last 6 months, I think I've really found peace with my kind of 20 critical classics with regards to how I make them. I never say I make them the best or the right way, but with regards to how I want them made, I'm at peace. I joke that the only one that I still just don't feel like putting in front of anybody is a Mai Tai. For some reason, Jesus doesn't want me to make a good Mai Tai. Maybe I'll go down not making a good Mai Tai, but I'm fighting for it, man. I'm fighting for it. So don't order a Mai Tai when you can.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for your time, and good luck with Oven and Shaker and the Naked Cocktail menu. We'll see if it starts popping up at other places, if other places start following the lead and saying, well, maybe we should put our ingredients out there.
It'll be fun to see.
Thanks.